Len shook his head. That's why I'm hunkered down here, duck and cover, laddie. Bran tilted his drink in a toast. Unfortunately, I married one of the belligerents. Len leaned back and stared at the ceiling. So she hears it, but hasn't she turned down other work? I mean, what sets this one apart? Bran drained his drink and Len poured him one more. That's what's in the horse. Ara has a chapbook of poems, terrible mawkish things you write in high school creative writing, and burn when you find them years later. Written under the name Lacey Lee. The author, after a few classes, determined to change her major and become a critic and publisher. She buried the pen name in favor of her own, Luna Telfer. Len's eyebrows went up and stayed there. This poem carries the title of the first poem in that collection. Len smiled with his teeth, the pipe an exclamation point. Nasty. Bran smiled. I knew you would like it. Len raised his eyebrows and frowned. But you've got to be careful, he said. They're not amateurs over there. Bran smiled more broadly. I don't plan to blackmail the woman. I just want to rattle her cage a bit. Len shrugged and cocked his head. Bran sped up, trying too hard to sell it now, pawning what was precious to him once upon a time. I know she'll listen. She told me so at one of those goddamn openings. You don't need anyone, Bran, she said. Len sipped his drink. He looked at Bran out from under in a way that said that he had known a thing a long time, and he was surprised Bran had not caught it. He creaked back and puffed. Then he pointed at Bran with the stem of his pipe and shook it in admonition. Be careful what you wish for, he said. I can't give you an afternoon show. We do have an opening late at night, but I don't suppose that would do. Bran leaned forward. I thought of that. She listens to an afternoon show religiously. I sat through 3 hours of Midori cocktails and gushing over Erica Jong for this late one Saturday morning. Len wrinkled his face. That's a bit graphic. Bran shrugged. War is hell. But the girl sometimes reads poetry, and I think she idolizes Luna. And Luna wants her for her dead-on judgment. The girl's show has published more than a couple poems. Len sipped his drink, followed the Rube Goldberg contours of the Maconde man. Bran always made him take stock, a thing he hated to do and normally only would do under strictly controlled conditions. But Bran was that one thing that seemed to survive an era of his past that obliterated all other species. And Bran, it seemed, was the least well adapted. Yet here he was, in his turtleneck and Chelsea's, like nothing had happened. A self-satisfied sort would give Len some nonsense about the exception that proves the rule, but Len had seen too many precious theories destroyed. To him, each exception was a fresh challenger of unknown might. And given the odds alone, Bran was mighty. For a time he may have been great, but after a few poems published by Luna, presumably in an attempt to court favor with Ara, who seemed devoted to him, he faded into the background, appearing again only as color in cocktail stories of that period in their college careers. And now this oddly childish stunt. The poem was good, he supposed, but these writers, they saw plots everywhere. Len never took anything too personally. If it were him, he'd just send the damn poem to someone else. He watched Bran's face and hands. He seemed sweaty. After all, it should be good. Bran tripping over his dick again, just like the old days. Who was he to stand in the way of progress? How do I reach her? Bran said. Len shifted his pipe. Bran was leaning forward. Good God, Len thought, maybe he does like her. This Kingmaker, Len pointed his pipe toward the door. Out there, you talked to her coming in. Bran sagged. Len couldn't help himself. I know, but you asked for it. Bran nodded, swirling his drink. He shook Len's hand across the desk and let himself out. He suddenly seemed ungainly and bunched up, like a bad salesman talking himself up in front of someone's front door. Len leaned back and laced his hands behind his head. He tasted that pleasantly sweet cocktail of pity, admiration, and amusement that Bran always brought with him. Like the old days, he murmured. He put on a Stan Kenton LP.